Hi gang, Rob here. It's the evening of August 2013, and tonight's video is going to be a .940. It was the idea of me doing a favor for my friend and respected YouTube colleague Cody that spawned what has now become the epic Wranglerstar Gauntlet Challenge. I just had a great appreciation for the Wranglerstar channel and everything Cody does for our community, and well, he and I both really have a lot of respect for this model knife, and I bought one, worked on mine, worked on a couple for friends, and I thought, man, it'd be nice, since he always complains about how he can't make this knife cut very well. It'd be nice if I used a little of what I know to help his old 940 cut like a knife should cut. And I made that offer, and his acceptance of that offer has turned into this huge deal about throwing down gauntlets and performing the impossible on worn out, beat up knives, and we're just having a little fun with it. But here's what I'm going to do to this knife, and it's kind of representative of what I do in my sharpening service for folding knives. So first, before I get into the process, I'm going to show you a little clip that I took of the performance of this knife before I touch it. So take a look, guys. And here's where we begin with the Wranglerstar 940. Let's look at how the mechanism works. We have a free swinging blade. Let's take a look at blade play. First, side to side, we have a little, but I'm not alarmed. I got a feeling that's just going to be a washer polish, a pivot screw adjustment, and some lube. What about vertical play? You're not going to be able to see this, but there is just a hint of vertical play. I think you guys are going to be really impressed with the action on this knife after we're done. Now let's see if it'll cut. First, we shall try printer paper. Anything will cut printer paper, right? Let's look. Let's stab it. Wow. That, boys, is a dull knife. Let's go over some detail on this edge. On what would be the back side of the blade, if you're a right-hander, we've got a fairly narrow bevel. Haven't checked the angle on this yet, guys, but you're going to notice on the back side of the blade, bevel's a little narrow. On the front side, from previous sharpening, I'm going to get this if it kills me in focus. There we go. A little broader. Just a little lack of attention to symmetry in previous sharpenings. And I'm going to throw some still pictures in here of the cutting edge to show you that it's a little chewed up. So that's where we're starting, guys. We're not even going to try to cut phone book paper with this knife because it's just not going to happen. We'll see you when we get there. Okay, so that is where we start. And let me talk now about where we got to go. we've got a really non-symmetrical edge bevel, and I've got to kind of find out what's up with that. So one of the first things I'm going to do before I start to sharpen is I'm going to mark the edge bevel on both sides with a little Sharpie so I can kind of see where it's at. What I like to do to the Benchmade 940 is apply a 15 degrees per side secondary bevel or approach bevel, and then finish it off with a 20-degree micro bevel. I hope this knife is going to want that, but because of the bevel on this side, which is I guess the front side for a right-hander, being so broad, I'm a little concerned with what the bevel is at now. It's going to be a process. I'm just going to have to start removing material and see where I need to remove it to get the knife back to a centered, straight, symmetrical bevel. So the first thing I'm going to do is find out where it's at now and where I think it can go. How close to what I normally do this knife is going to put up with without having to remove too much material. One of the first things I'm going to do is remove the thumb stud, because as I sharpen the base of the blade, without removing that, I'm going to grind it off. So thank goodness Benchmade uses a threaded thumb stud that just comes out with a T6 Torx bit. Then I'm going to get to work on sharpening the knife. Because the tip is rounded, as you can see, I'm probably going to have to repoint this knife both from the cutting edge and from the spine of the reverse tanto cut. The neat thing about the 940 is it's got this really broad, flat ground tanto profile, which really lends itself to sitting on a stone and helping reprofile the tip without the knife really looking any different when you're done. So I'm probably going to remove material from the tanto as well as the cutting edge to give this knife a nice new fresh point. Then I'll apply my bevels, working through my stones, which are 220 grit, 400 grit, and then 1000. Finishing with 2000 grit polishing tapes, and then a leather strop two-sided with coarse gray compound on one side and finer green compound on the other. I'm not going to bore you by filming all of this. I'm going to sort of hit the high points and put it together in this video so you can get a glimpse of what I do. Then when the knife is sharp, I'm going to completely disassemble it. As I sharpen, my slurry of water and abrasive material will invariably get into the pivot area, and I don't want to ever send a knife out like that. So I'll disassemble the whole handle frame, take the steel liners out, make sure there are no burrs on any of the internal components, no deep scratches. I'll polish the washers and probably the liners underneath the washers, and also the tang of the blade. Lubricate it well, put it all back together, adjusting the pivot. The blue Loctite will go on the pivot of the knife. I'll probably set this one up as I usually do, just a little tight, so as it gets used over the next month or two, it'll loosen up where it needs to be without any blade play. When I reassemble the handle, this is kind of important. This is an aluminum knife, aluminum handled knife. And as you can see, the back sides of these screws, there are no steel inserts, threaded inserts. The screws thread directly into the aluminum. I rarely, if ever, use Loctite where a steel screw screws into an aluminum handle or scale. The aluminum is generally soft enough. As the screw tightens, it'll get a good bite and won't loosen. And sometimes, if you do Loctite screws in a situation like that, when you need to take it apart again, sometimes those aluminum threads will come out with the screw. And we don't want that. So we'll see how those holes feel as the knife goes back together, and I'll use my best judgment. If they're a little loose, they're going to get Loctite. because this knife has a hard life, as you guys well know. Well, now it's time to dive on in, isn't it? Come along and watch how we transform this thing and bring it back to peak performance. Okay guys, time to mark with the Sharpie. What I'm doing is basically just coloring the approach bevel, and then I'm going to make a couple passes with my stone and see how I'm cleaning up. And I'm set up right now for a 15-degree per side approach grind. Wow. Don't know if you can pick this up, but I'm leaving a lot of marker at the cutting edge. I'm cleaning up at the blade side of that mark, which means the approach grind is very steep on this knife. And on the other side as well. I got a decision to make here. Just how broad do we want this cutting edge to be? This knife was either ground pretty thick behind the edge from the factory, or it's been sharpened a lot. I'm either going to have a thin cutter with a very broad secondary bevel, or I'm going to have something that looks pretty good that has a pretty steep secondary bevel. Wow. Because of how hard this knife gets used, I don't think I'm going to sharpen it for ultimate cutting. I think I'm going to go about 17 degrees. And then a 20-degree micro bevel. There won't be that big demarcation between the secondary bevel and the micro bevel, but I think I'm going to hit a happy medium. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay guys, I'm set up with my Edge Pro at 17 degrees per side to do this approach grind or secondary bevel. One thing before I get started I wanted to go over with you. Very important, especially if you're doing a knife that has a long run of very straight edge, to start with flat stones. Over time, as you use any sharpening stone, because of the pattern at which you sharpen and where the blade digs into it, you're going to end up with concave sections, and usually they're going to be thicker at the ends. Very important to flatten them. Now you can buy lots of gadgets to flatten your stones with. Edge Pro sells a round piece of glass and a bag of sand for like 50 bucks. If you have a good flat semi-rough piece of concrete, that works just as well. I just flattened these on concrete. So we should have a very, very nice straight edge when we get done. Alright, time to get started. I'll film a little bit of this for you. Not going to bore you with an hour and a half of grinding stones over steel, but just to give you an idea, if some of you haven't watched any of my sharpening videos, what we're doing. In the beginning, I know I'm going to remove a lot of material. Just going to try to keep it relatively even. So when I'm done with this 220 stone, both my sides of the knife have the same breadth of secondary bevel. That way I know my cutting edge is going right down the middle. And as I get close, I'm going to take longer strokes to develop a uniform scratch pattern. Hey, I think that happy medium is going to work pretty well. Guys, this masking tape on the table and on the blade is going to keep the abrasive slurry from marring the blade. and from from grinding into my table. Because Lord knows we wouldn't want to put any scratches or dull spots in this pristine blade of Wranglerstar's 940. Alright, boys and girls, I'm going to turn the camera off for a while and I'll pick you back up as we do the micro bevel. Okay guys, we finished the secondary bevel, the 17-degree bevel, and moved on to the micro bevel. I don't use the 220 stone at this point, just the 400, 1000, and the 2000 grit polishing tapes. I've already made 10 passes each side with the 400. I'm just going to make 5 light passes on each side. Now I'm going to switch to the 1000 grit stone. Okay, going to put this micro bevel on at 1000 grit. If you notice, no more sawing strokes. We want a nice uniform scratch pattern. When we go to the polishing tapes on this final edge, we want to have as little burr as possible because it rips the tape if you have a burr. Okay, that's it for stones. Oh yeah, we got an edge. Now we're just refining it. Let's get any old slurry off our table. We just don't want to contaminate this last stage at all. Wipe the blade clean. You can use water on the polishing tapes or not. Some steels like it better than others. The low grindability steels like 154 cm seem to like it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw back for a few strokes just to get rid of any burr that might be there so it doesn't rip my tape. Now I'm polishing and I can go back to these sawing strokes now. I'm going for a visual micro finish. I'm not going to damage any edge that's there using this. Real light pressure. And let's just finish with about 5 light ones on each side again. Oh yeah, we are there. I'm going to put away the Edge Pro now and transition to the strop to finish this edge. Okay guys, we're now at the green side of the strop, the final stage in sharpening. I'm going to really strop at two angles, one to try to match that 17-degree secondary bevel. And then we're going to try to pick up that final 20-degree cutting edge bevel. Using quite a bit of pressure on the secondary, and now this is the payoff, the final strop on the micro bevel. Much lighter pressure now. Polishing off any little micro serrations to give us a sharp, straight, clean, and durable cutting edge. Super slicing ability. Very resistant to rolling, chipping, and easy to touch up. Last couple strokes at a steeper angle, just the weight of the blade, just to clean off any lingering micro burrs, and we're done, I think. A little visual. Oh, well, we're not going to cut with it yet. Got to take it apart, and we'll show you a little bit of that process too. Okay gang, disassembly complete. I got a couple surprises when I opened up this knife. Now I knew this was probably a 2007 or back 940 because of the blade steel, which is clearly marked 154 cm. What I did not know is that not only was there a blade steel change, there was a change in washer material. What do we see here? Those are not phosphor bronze. Those appear to be Emerson style nylotron. A little stiffer and harder than Teflon. Interesting. And this is one of the surprises that kind of blows my mind, and here's the other. Remember when I did my first video in the series when I got the package from Wranglerstar and I talked about how surprised I was that the knife was cleaned and oiled and how well Cody takes care of his tools? Well, let's see, how do I put this? First of all, the fasteners were all filled with crud and glue, and I had to dig them out to get the knife apart before I could even get a Torx bit in them. So I knew it hadn't been apart for a while, and then I got inside. Look. Ew. Ew. Sorry to air your dirty Benchmade like this, Cody. That's gross. I haven't had to snap off a piece of hot glue from one of these liners right here. Guys, it's rather amazing this knife was working as smoothly and reliably as it was, because it was gross inside. It's a wonder I didn't have more up and down play than I did. Look at this lock bar. Well, time to go wash some dishes. We don't really have any polishing to do of any washers or any liners, but we got some cleaning to do, so I'm not going to bore you with that. I'm going to put this knife back together clean and oiled and Loctite what needs Loctited and lube what needs lubed and adjust it for optimum performance, and I'll meet you back here when it's all done. We've arrived at about the last stage of the process, and what I do is loosely fit the knife frame back together. All the fasteners are in, they're all loose, and there's a reason for that, which is we have to put the blade and washers together as an assembly, kind of stick them together with oil, lubricant, in this case Hoppy's number 9 gun oil. Yes, I'm old-fashioned. We put it together loose so we can easily slide them in. What I'm going to do now is lube the inside of the frame where the pivot's going to ride. I'm going to put a little lube around the outside of the pivot. Inside the pivot hole of the blade, around where the washers ride. Now, I should be able to get my washers to kind of stick on that little coating of oil. Which they do. Sort of spread the frame with my thumb. Slide the blade and washers in. Get it close. Pull back on the axis lock to let the knife come into place. Now what I do is I take a Torx bit and use it as kind of an alignment tool. For knife and washers. Try to get them in the right place. Now, holding the frame together, keeping the flat spot of the pivot in the right orientation. Looks like she's home. Pretty much. Now we can fit our pivot. Okay, now what I'm going to do, since we're all back together, is take each fastener out, and every fastener in this knife was already Loctited. So I am going to put it together like I took it apart. All my fasteners are in loose. I'm going to take them out one by one, Loctite them, put them back in, and I'll see you after the knife is together tight, and then we'll adjust the pivot. Okay, we got an old Benchmade with some nylitron washers. Not quite as free as I would like it. We're on the verge of blade play. I'm going to leave it alone from here. Let Cody fine tune it. It's close, but you know, every 940 owner has his own preferences. With the blue Loctite, guys, you can make minor adjustments, especially if you get the knife a little bit warm. I'm going to leave this just a hair tight. By the combination of using it and Cody's adjustments, it'll be as close to perfect as a Nylotron washered knife can. And guys, remember, it's 6 or 7 or 8 years old, so there's a little wear. I did notice putting this back together in the slot where the axis lock bar rides. The liners were deformed a little bit from prying or something, so I did polish off the bird raised areas where the material went, but that slot is a little beat up where that bar rides, so there might be just a hint, depending on how you open it, of up and down play that just won't go away because that bar is not exactly sliding freely. Got a couple notches in it, and yeah, it's there a little bit, but when you know what this knife has been through, removing staples, breaking down skids, cutting who knows what, driving screws with the backside of the reverse tanto, it still operates awfully well. See, it's freeing up now. I think it's going to break back in just fine. Alright, I'm going to wipe everything down, take a couple passes over the strap, meet you back here for a cut test. Okay, gang, moment of truth. Knife works flawlessly. Up and down play almost totally gone. Yeah, totally gone. Side to side, just not there. Almost free swinging, but just a little tight for adjustment. Now, this knife came here to get sharp. Let's see if it did. Ooh. Oh. That's pretty good. Let's see if it'll push cut. Well, Cody, your one complaint about the venerable Benchmade 940 is that it just doesn't cut very well. No longer. Alright guys, enough from the sharpening bench. Meet you back upstairs for a wrap-up. Well gang, that about does it for the Wranglerstar Gauntlet Challenge. I think I successfully defended my honor as a YouTuber in good standing and semi-skilled knife sharpener. I hope Cody agrees, and I hope his trusty Benchmade 940 serves him better than ever with this new edge. I want to thank all you guys for your gentle and kind support. You know, encouraging words like, "Don't screw it up, Wranglerstar Nation is watching." I was thankful before I got into this blade last night that I got a call from my buddy Campfire Talk. He must have known how I was feeling. He kind of understands the perfectionism that I approach knife sharpening with, and he just said, "You know, buddy, just do what you do." So thank you, Camp, for your words of calming encouragement. This is one of those little projects that reminds me why I YouTube. You know, it's not a venture that that makes me much money, nor does my knife sharpening. It's just kind of a neat way to share information and meet guys and stay in touch with guys that share the same interests. And our little YouTube knife gear gun community is a pretty neat bunch of folks. I've been glad to have this opportunity to get to know some better and get to meet some for the first time in that odd way that we meet. Cody, I hope you're satisfied with these 2 knives I'm going to send back to you. Probably put them in the mail tomorrow after I get a chance to review a proper flashlight this evening. Thank you to all the new viewers and subscribers that have come my way through this little process. It is a beautiful morning in Northeast Indiana, 14 August 2013. I hope yours is beautiful as well. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember the Word and Wranglerstar's Benchmade 940 are sharp.